why don't each one of you give us one example, in your opinion, of how what happens to the ocean then affects those of us who are living on land. And I think that kind of will help to dramatize what the storyline is for us if we continue to ignore the oceans as a part of this story. So begin with you, Ms. Sproul. Do you have one good example that you'd like to use?
I have a list of examples, Chairman Markey, and I'm going to include them in the context of climate change because I think that's where we're going to feel the impacts first, and obviously coastal communities will be influenced. We're going to see changes in fisheries. There's no doubt about that. Climate change is going to disrupt availability. It's going to raise seafood prices. There are human health considerations. Human health is predicted to decline due to climate change related causes. Food and water shortages, we've already seen some of this brought about because of areas affected by drought. Insurance rates, we're already seeing rates affected because of extreme weather events such as hurricanes. Our infrastructure needs are only going to increase as sea levels rise. New reports have been released that show that states are going to need to be spending more money on roads and on homes and on airports. And of course these coastal communities are going to feel these losses most in the coming decades.
Dr. Earle, do you have a vivid example of how we are affected?
I think it's important to first understand the basic process and then see how the changes are influencing those processes. So think about every breath you take. Where does the oxygen come from? 20% of the atmosphere is oxygen, 80% or so is nitrogen, just enough carbon dioxide to make the green plants do their thing to produce more oxygen through photosynthesis and thus drive the great food chains. That's the way it's been now for many millions of years. It wasn't always that way. Earth wasn't always hospitable for the likes of us, and I think that's something many people need to put on the balance sheet, that what we have today represents the distillation of all preceding history. Literally hundreds of millions of years have led us to a planet that works in our favor. There was a time going way back before dinosaurs when there wasn't 20% oxygen in the atmosphere. But today there is. We have the power, the capacity to change that through what we're doing to the engine, the green engine that in the ocean as well as on the land that produces that oxygen. So first understand how the system works and then realize we are really messing that system up. And it's also true with the water you drink. People think it comes out of the spigot, water does, or you get it in little bottles when you go to the store. No, most of Earth's water, 97%, is in the ocean. How does it get into the bottles, into your sink, whatever? It goes up into the atmosphere as clouds, mostly from the ocean. Take away the ocean, you just eliminate the water system. So it's first understand that and then realize what we are doing that is disrupting that system.
Come back to you, Dr. Claypass. Do you have an example?
I think to play on what Sylvia said, when you have, these ecosystems are not separate. You don't just lose one ecosystem. You're going to have a cascading effect. And the example I had for coral reefs is that they provide the environment where we can have mangroves and seagrass beds. Those are very good fishing areas. So if we lose coral reefs, we lose a lot of other ecosystems that are intertwined with that ecosystem. But I agree with you, it's hard to explain to someone that has lived in Kansas their entire life and maybe has never seen the ocean to really make those links, and that's where we fail in the education. If we lose our economies in our coastal regions, which really depend on the oceans, we're going to affect all of the cities in the U.S. and elsewhere. It's hard to imagine that economic impacts on the coast are not going to permeate the rest of the economy.
Dr. Lutsenko, do you have an example?
When I was on the Pew Oceans Commission, Mr. Chairman, we were told something that I actually hadn't thought about, and that was that half of America lives on the coasts, the other half goes there to play. And I think that that's a nice touchstone. As the Pew Ocean Commission moved around from one city to another, all along the coastal margins and also in the heartland, I asked Americans exactly the question that you posed to us. What do you want from oceans? What do you care about oceans? Why should we be thinking about changing anything? And what I heard from them were 5 things, boiled down to 5 things. Americans told us they wanted safe seafood, healthy seafood, number 1. Number 2, clean beaches. Number 3, abundant wildlife. Number 4, stable fisheries. No more of this boom and bust and closures. And 5th, vibrant coastal communities. Now, I think that's a really nice summary and synthesis of the way Americans think about oceans, and I think that they truly understand that they appreciate them, they want these things. What they don't understand is that all of those things depend on healthy, productive, and resilient ecosystems, and that's not what we're seeing now. We're seeing serious degradation and disruption and depletion. And climate change is going to exacerbate that very, very seriously.